Hey, how y'all doing today? Want to share a few thoughts with you. Want to touch base with everybody. Hope everybody's doing fine, staying safe at home, taking care of their family. But today I want to talk about this virus that everybody's having so many issues with and so many concerns. See, when this virus started in China. And one of the first things that happened was, well, China shut down travel from Wuhan to all other cities inside of China. Not the rest of the world, to China. And they contacted the World Health Organization, the WHO, and the WHO was aware of what was going on. They was aware that they had shut down travel to all the other cities in China. They were aware that they were still letting people travel around the world. But they were also saying that this virus wasn't dangerous. This virus was not going to be a problem. So, there you go with that. You know, from the word go, the World Health Organization, they were buddying with China. So, virus, it finds its way across the seas into the United States. We get our first case, and President Trump, well, he banned travel from China. In process of doing that, good old Sleepy Joe, he up and called him xenophobic and said he was racist and was attacking the Chinese people. He never said anything about Chinese people. He stopped a virus from coming across the seas to the best of his ability by the only one means he had, and that was through flight. Well, right shortly after that, he let a bunch of people come in from China. Yeah, he let a bunch of people come in from China, American citizens who were quarantined and watched after and made sure that they didn't have the virus or wasn't going to transfer the virus to somebody else. I mean, they were American citizens. You don't care about American citizens? Anyway, Trump, he does these things and he gets his little group of people together, you know, and we've already had Sleepy Joe saying he was xenophobic. We've got Nancy Pelosi running around in Chinatown telling everybody he's over-exaggerating, that he's just being racist again, and he's speaking out about the Chinese people, and you need to come down to Chinatown, everything's okay, hang out, party, and have a good time. Even though he never spoke out about China. Look at the interviews. He never spoke about the Chinese people, the Chinese virus. Well, it hits the country, and he brings his little group of people together, and he comes out and he does the only thing he can do at that time. The only thing anybody could have done at that time. Wash your hands, social distance, don't touch your face, your eyes, your mouth. Try to be safe and be smart. Well, that wasn't enough. They wanted some kind of level of perfection that didn't exist. So, during that period of time, they decided, well, to say the Chinese flu is just wrong. That's just socially wrong. You can't talk about the Chinese people like that. If you back up and you look at the beginning when this friggin' started, all of them, MSN, ABC, NBC, CBS, Pelosi, Nadler, Schiff, every one of these people were saying the Chinese virus, the Wuhan virus. They were saying the same things that they started condemning Trump about. But all of a sudden, it's politically incorrect for Trump to say it. Proof is right there. All you got to do is look it up. Well, the virus hits and it starts getting a little bad, and we start getting numbers, and we start getting some situations like in New York and California where the numbers are skyrocketing. And everybody's hollering, we need tests, we need tests, we need tests. Well, we already knew that the tests that was coming out of China were faulty. They weren't working. Trump knew that. I knew that. I read the freaking report. I knew the tests were faulty. So Trump brought people together and started looking for a new test, an American-made test that was going to show a more positive result than what was being put out. But y'all didn't get told none of that. You weren't following any of that. You weren't keeping track of the Chinese news. You weren't keeping track of all the stuff that was going through the CDC and the World Health Organization and what was going on in Korea, Vietnam, Taiwan, all the other little places over there. Believe it or not, I was sitting here watching all this. I was reading that the reports were coming back false positives, that people were having issues with these tests, that they were showing larger numbers of people having the disease than actually had it. Yeah, I was tracking all that. Wasn't being put on the news, wasn't being put out on the news, little tidbits here and there. but nothing. But they were hollering, test, 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 test. Well, Trump come up with a test, and he started testing. Well, that happens, and then all of a sudden, now, ventilators. Well, Trump, he goes out and he enacts God, I wish I could remember the name of that. But he enacts a bill, and he gets Ford and a few other places to start building ventilators. He goes out and he gets people to start making masks and PPE. Because our good buddies China, the ones we've shipped all our businesses through the Asian Free Trade Agreement, through the WTC, World Trading Conference, where they got all these friggin' benefits, well, they weren't going to give up no mask, no PPE, no medicine, no anything to us, because they need them for their people. Now, I'm not condemning them for needing them for their people, but we put all our hopes and dreams in them, and when we needed it, we were let down. We put all our businesses over there. Thanks Bush, thanks Clinton, thanks Obama. Yeah, they the ones that done that, but we'll get to that later. But all this goes over there, and all of a sudden we don't have ventilators, we don't have PPE, we don't have masks. Well, let me explain something to you about ventilators, PPE, and masks. Yeah, the government is supposed to retain a certain amount of those, but so is the state government, the city government, local government. They're all supposed to be having these stockpiles just in case an event happens. You don't burn through a stockpile in a week. A week is not a stockpile. 6 months, everyday use, nonstop, maybe a stockpile. Then you go to your government, your local government, your state government. Then you go to the federal government. But, okay, we didn't have those. Thank you, Obama. Thank you, Biden. H1N1 2009, these stockpiles should have been pumped up, because if I remember correctly, in 2009, we had an issue with masks across the United States, but these stockpiles weren't bumped up. But Obama and Biden left him a perfectly planned pandemic protection plan. Yeah, okay. So explain to me that one. But anyway, Trump gets these ventilators made. Trump gets these masks made. He gets them shipped out. The next thing you know, Cuomo comes on, and good old Cuomo, good old New York Governor Cuomo comes on and says, oh my God, we need 40,000 ventilators. We got 35,000 people in the hospital. Well, statistically, only about 10% of them need a ventilator. So 30,000, that's what, like 3,000 ventilators? But he needed 40,000 ventilators. I think it was 35,000. But he was putting out a big number of ventilators that he needed. Way more than he actually needed. See, he was pushing the fear factor. He was making the president look bad at the same time. It was a fear thing. Well, you know, old Trump, he ain't no dummy. Y'all think he is, but he ain't. Something ain't right. Something ain't adding up. So he gets Barr to start investigating. So Barr goes out and announces an investigation that's getting ready to start to happen to see what's going on with all the ventilators and all the masks that are being put out. And all of a sudden, overnight, Governor Cuomo says, well, wait a minute. We've got a stockpile of them in Jersey. They're sitting in Jersey. We just need to go get the dust off of them and get them into the hospitals, and we'll be okay. Yeah, that's out there. That's proven. Well, good old Cuomo, you know, New York, California, they decided for some reason that it was okay to take old folk that had COVID and put them back in their old folk home with people who didn't have COVID and tell them it was okay. You know, this disease is dangerous to elderly people. We lost 40,000 grandmothers and grandfathers because good old Cuomo and can't remember the dude in California decided they wanted to put all these old folks back in these homes. And then they wanted to blame it on Trump. Now, that's not Trump's decision. Trump did not tell them that they need to do that. If you can find a document that says that and shows it to me, that Trump said take old folks with COVID and put them back in the hospital, send it to me. I ain't seen it. I've looked a lot, been around a lot, checked out a lot of stuff. Now, also, when this disease started, old Trump, he come out and he started talking about hydroxychloroquine. Okay, that's a voodoo word. I probably shouldn't have said it, but there you go. I said it. He puts out that this might be a miracle cure, a miracle answer. Wonder why he would have said that. Wouldn't have had nothing to do with the 2005 study that Dr. Fauci put out. about COVID and hydroxychloroquine. No, wouldn't have nothing to do with that. We won't let that document get seen by the normal people. I've seen it. But, you know, Trump puts it out, and all of a sudden, he's wrong. He's trying to kill Americans. He does not care about Americans. He's trying to kill Americans. Next thing you know, some guy dies from hydroxychloroquine, and some woman's in the hospital. Well, let me explain to you, that was a fish tank hydroxychloroquine. No doctors prescribed it to them. They weren't told how much to take. They had no medical degree, and it was of their own choice that they did that. Anybody that thinks that they're just going to take something out of for a fish aquarium and drink it and doesn't want to go to the doctor, there was more issues going on there than can be determined. But you know, we won't get into the fact that when the medical ME did the autopsy, they found out that this guy had extreme levels and that the wife's levels were minor. Yeah, something fishy there. But you know, hey, this all started with a fish tank anyway. But hydroxychloroquine is supposed to be the dangerous disease that's going to give you heart attacks. Well, the VA did a study, and we come to find out that the VA did a study that was faulty. It wasn't 100% right. The people already had it. There was no other drugs administered with it. There wasn't anything to work with it or to help it out. So it was a faulty study. It was false. Even though they were putting out, the VA said it's going to kill you. Well, then there was the study of Trenton, whatever the case is. And, well, this study here, it was pretty cool itself because once everybody went and said, hey, I want to see your test results. I want to talk to the patients. I want to know which hospital you did it in. I want to know under what conditions you performed the study. Well, they couldn't produce any paperwork to prove it. They couldn't produce any people. They couldn't produce any doctors. And all of a sudden, people are saying, well, wait a minute, this study is not right. And we come to find out that that study as well was fake. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you about hydroxychloroquine. HCQ. It's been around 40, 50 years. They use it for malaria mainly. It's one of the biggest drugs that they take to help people with malaria. When you're going to go to a country with malaria, the first thing they do is they prescribe you this pill and you have to take it. Okay, so people have been taking it for a while and not dying. Matter of fact, it's been saving their lives. Now, here's the really interesting thing, because if you go to the CDC site, it says it's okay for pregnant women. Pregnant women who can't eat fish, who can't drink, who can't smoke, who have to watch everything that they eat, everything that they do, everything that they're around because it might endanger the baby, was prescribed this pill and said it's perfectly okay. It's on the CDC website. You can read on the CDC website for malaria about HCQ and giving it to pregnant women. Now, there's another interesting thing about HCQ. If you look at the countries that had malaria that prescribed this pill, you'll notice that these COVID tests, these COVID deaths and positive ratings are a lot lower than anywhere else. Literally a lot lower than anywhere else in the world. But, hey, the government needs you to think that, you know, taking this medication's wrong. Trump is going to get you killed. Now, we're not going to go into the chlorine in the body and everything and what he said there because, well, to be honest with you, if you don't understand the fact that every time you drink a glass of tap water, you're drinking bleach or chlorine, I don't know what to say about it. If you don't think half the vaccinations that they stick in your baby don't have types of bleach and chlorine and disinfectants in it, yeah, you need to go look at what the ingredients are inside of those, because some of them are, including embalming fluid. You know, that's that stuff they pump you full of when you die so that you don't come back alive and try to scratch your way out of a coffin. Yeah, it's all cool. It's all cool. But, you know, hey, Trump does not care about the American people. That's the narrative that needs to put out. He doesn't care about the American people. Well, these results are getting bad in California and New York, and he sends out the Comfort and he sends out the Mercy. Yeah, these are two ships that are designed for nothing but medical use. That's all they are. Big floating hospitals. Bam, military hospitals. Boom, get it military. Gotta love it, baby. Then he also takes and he enacts all of these inland temporary hospitals that need to be put up, all these tents and taking over all these facilities and setting up all these beds and all these medical, and well, all this is done. But Trump didn't do anything. He didn't act anything at all to help the American people. You want you to remember that. He didn't do anything to enact the American people. This was not Pelosi, Nadler, any of those people. It wasn't Schiff. It wasn't any of those people that done all this. This was Trump and his team that came out and talked to you every day in a briefing. They come up with this game plan. Now remember, this is going on around the world. So this bug thing that's going on around the world is Trump's fault. It's all Trump's fault, even though the whole world is suffering from it. But it's all Trump's fault. Now, I want you to remember that. Don't you forget that, because that's important. That's what they want you to think. That's what they want you to believe. Well, these hospitals, they go out there and they do their thing, and the numbers start to fall. Now, we got death tolls shooting up. Remember, we lost 40,000 elderly people because our governors in these prime states decided they wanted to do something stupid. So they boosted the numbers by 40,000. Now we're sitting here today and we see that the CDC and the World Health Organization, they're all scrambling and they're all putting out all these numbers. And what are we finding out today? Their numbers are fake. They're false. See, we got this thing, it's called the coronavirus. And now, understand that there's multiple strains of the coronavirus. It's not one, it's not two, it's not three. There's multiple strains. And every one of them have a different effect. Would you believe me if I told you that one of the strains of the coronavirus is the common cold? It is. Do your research. Look into it. And when you take your test for the coronavirus, you're not being tested for one particular strain of the coronavirus. You're being tested for all strains. So if you got it, you might just have the common cold, or you might have the one that came out of Wuhan, the one that there's still a lot of questions behind that one. But you know, we're not going to talk about the Fauci, Obama, Biden trip to Wuhan. We're not going to talk about the 2015 when all of these medical researchers were sent to Wuhan out of the United States. We won't get into none of that, even though there's signed documents for it, there's videos for it, and there's proof of it across the board. But we're not going to get into all of that. That's all riding into conspiracy theory. I can't prove any of it. I can just assume. But everything I'm going to talk to you right now about, I can prove. I can show you paperwork and documentation. You can look at it on TV. You can look at it no matter what you want. You can back up and think whatever you want and see it. Now, they're going to tell you that he ain't done nothing. He ain't done nothing to help the American people. But yet, when you got that big fat check in your pocket and you going out, rushing out and buying new TVs and new shoes, new pots and pans and blankets and stuff, when you should have been buying food, because trust me, that's what this old boy did. He went out and bought $1,000 worth of freaking food and stockpiled his house. And me and my love is still eating off that food. And she's just as happy as she can be that I went out and done that. Didn't hit it all at once. I took it a little bit at a time. But I filled my house full of food and water and stuff that I needed to survive, to make sure my animals were took care of, I was took care of, and my girl was took care of. That's what I did. But when those little checks were being handed out and everybody was so happy, do you realize the battle they had to go through? Do you realize that Nancy Pelosi all of a sudden showed up after they sit and they did a bipartisan? That meant the Democrats and the Republicans got together and drew up a plan that all of a sudden Nancy showed up on Sunday with a whole bunch of things that weren't even relevant. I mean, she was trying to get us free pot. She was trying to get us free everything. She was hooking up everybody with some money. She was saving everything. She was working on the Green New Deal. She was working on saving the post office. She was working on saving everything. But remember, Trump don't care about the American people. Now, she got a bunch of money from like the Kennedy Research Center and stuff like that and a few other places. So I went and done a little digging shortly thereafter, and I found out that shortly after they got all this big money, yeah, well, Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic National Convention got a big kickback. They got a big donation from the Kennedy Foundation, $5 million. And that's interesting, isn't it? But we don't look into that. We don't talk about that. That's stuff we normal people don't see. See, they provoked something. They provoke the average person that normally sits home and doesn't care about nothing to start digging and looking and seeing. That's what they provoked in me. See, I seen too many lies. I seen too many things that just wasn't adding up, didn't make sense. And the more it didn't make sense, the more I started doing a little bit more research, and I started getting into it. And then they set my butt at home with nothing to do, no job, no nothing. All I had was my internet, my phone, my computer, and my TV, and I went to town, baby. I looked at everything I could possibly look at. I went to every site that I could possibly go to, digging into information, because I wanted to know what was going on in my world. And the more I dug, the more I found. And the more I found, the more I wanted to dig. And there's a whole lot of things going on in this world right now. A whole lot of things that we need to talk about. But trust me, if you think the Democrats got your back, they don't. See, they tell you that Trump only helped the big business. Big business is the only thing he did. He wasn't helping you. Remember, like I keep telling you, Trump is not out for the common person. But when you get that $1,200, $2,400, what is it, $3,000, $3,600, depending on how many kids you got, how many people in your family, you ain't got to pay that back. When you get that extra $600 on your unemployment check, you ain't got to pay that back. The mom and pop store that only got a few people working, they ain't got to pay that back. Big business, hotel chains, airports, cruise ships, any of the big businesses that suffered, that got a loan to help them get through this time period, guess what? It was called a grant. They have to pay it back. But Trump wasn't taking care of the people. Look it up. Check out the paperwork. See what's going on. They got grants. They got grants that they have to pay back. They're going to make money on them. They didn't make money on us. They did what they could to help us survive. But, you know, hey. So now we're up to today's date, and we got this thing going on there. They're all about how Trump screwed the coronavirus up, how Obama and Biden would have done a much better thing. Yeah, okay, so H1N1 hits. We run out of masks. We run out of everything. They got a little 17-page pamphlet by their own confession, by their own words, by their own interview. 17 pages on how to deal with the pandemic. That they done a completely different thing with H1N1. They stopped testing. They had a cure for it any dang way. They basically put out with their own words. Watched Obama say it with his own words. People need to be exposed. We need mass immunity. Completely different process. Completely different thing. See, you got to back up to 2018, or excuse me, 1918 in order to actually find a time when you actually had a pandemic that was close to what this is. Look, I just want to share a few things with everybody. I got much love for all of my Americans, all my brothers and sisters across the land. And that's my brothers and sisters of all age, of all sex, of all color, of all religion, of all anything. If you're an American, you my brother and sister. Come together as one. We need to band together. Politicians do not own this country. We, the Americans, own this country. They work for us. They're felonious. It's time to fire them and get them the heck out. It's time to get people in there who are going to do what we need done. Much love, much peace. Hey, anything you got to say back, please say back. Always willing to talk, always willing to communicate, always willing to broaden my knowledge and my horizons. Much love, much peace.